The Toronto Raptors have entered a retool phase, but in an attempt to expedite this process, this latest NBA report links Toronto to a shock move for Wizards forward Kyle Kuzma. So in this video, we assess the rumors and decide if this could really happen for the Raptors, and if it could, should Masai Ujiri pull the trigger? Let's get into it. Teams, executive personnel, and reporters as well know that Masai Ujiri is typically not one to rest on his laurels and could be looking to really accelerate this retool process going on for the Toronto Raptors. And perhaps there is also the added pressure from the Raptors ownership group, Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment, MLSE, under the rumblings that there could be a little bit of a rebrand going on for the Raptors right now, that they want to push out a better on-court product, therefore, again, accelerating this retool process here. And with this understanding, this latest article coming from Clutch Sports by Brett Siegel has discussed different destinations of where Kyle Kuzma could end up as the Washington Wizards look towards being in a more so rebuild phase, full-blown rebuild phase, rather than a retool phase like the Raptors. And in this rebuild phase, they are looking to capitalize and strike on the valuation for Kyle Kuzma. And one of the teams specifically referenced in this article by Siegel is the Toronto Raptors, citing that the Toronto Raptors are a team to keep an eye on in this situation for these specifics that I've outlined here. Masai Ujiri may want to accelerate this process here, and the Raptors as well are looking to get rid of Bruce Brown. Potentially, there is a trade involved here between the Raptors and the Wizards that could send Kyle Kuzma to Toronto and really help strengthen this core in place with Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, Scotty Barnes, and perhaps to a certain degree Grady Dick as well. Could Kuzma be the nice piece to fit within this group? That is what we are going to figure out over the course of the video right here on Amateur Hour Sports, the YouTube channel dedicated to Toronto Raptors content, covering the draft, covering the latest rumors in videos like this, as well as live from the channel. Drop a like if you enjoy, subscribe for more Raptors content, help us on the road to 18,000 subscribers. So these reports were met by myself with a little bit of surprise here, and I was enlightened to these potential rumors actually yesterday. I was live streaming on the Bleacher Report app, and a lot of the discussion in the chat there, where I was discussing potential Raptors mock trades, a lot of the chat actually revolved specifically around Kyle Kuzma, and that's when I really started to see this sort of news trickle out about the potential of the Raptors landing the player. So we're going to figure out what it would actually take for the Raptors to make this happen, and if they should go ahead and do that by the end of the video. We'll have the full answer on this entire situation. So Kyle Kuzma, the situation kind of begins a little bit strangely here. Kyle Kuzma went from a late first-round pick to this sort of almost prodigy with the Los Angeles Lakers over the course of his summer league ahead of his rookie NBA season. And though we didn't live up quite to the hype that was set then, likely by, the Lakers hype, the purple and gold blinders, the media hype that went around the player, Kyle Kuzma has turned into a terrific player. He's turned into a over $20 million per year player. He's an NBA champion and was an important piece of that Lakers NBA championship. And you could argue that the team hasn't really quite been the same since they pulled the trigger on the trade to send Kyle Kuzma alongside, some other good assets to the Washington Wizards in the trade that brought back Russell Westbrook. They really killed their identity with that trade, and they killed their depth. And of course, the Lakers, they haven't been back to the NBA Finals since. The closest they got was last season. They got to a conference finals where they got swept by the Denver Nuggets. So Kyle Kuzma is missed over there, and the Wizards do understand his value. That's the reason they gave him an extension. But the extension he got in the summer of last year was surprising. It was the end of Kyle Kuzma's contract. He was a free agent. The Wizards seemingly were entering towards a full-blown rebuild. I thought they should have capitalized on his valuation before he became a free agent. But my full expectation was that Kyle Kuzma was going to end on a different team, but ended up re-signing for the Wizards on a 4-year, $90 million contract, $22.5 million per year on average. But notably, the contract was very much front-loaded. So it's going to be descending in value on a year-to-year basis, making it much more appealing for teams to pick up a player. Because Kyle Kuzma, say what you want about him off court, say what you want about his antics, he is a good player here, and the statistics do showcase that as well. He averaged 22.2 points per game, 6.6 rebounds, 4.2 assists. Not the most efficient here. Look, the Washington Wizards were not a very serious team last season. They kind of just let their high-tier players like Kyle Kuzma and Jordan Poole really do whatever they want a lot of the time. It wasn't the most structured play. It was very ugly basketball. And honestly, Kyle Kuzma may have contributed to that. We'll talk about why that's not really a problem in just a second here. But yeah, not super efficient here. Shooting 46% from the field, 33.6% from three. And honestly, an effective field percentage of 52 in a very unstructured, unserious environment is rather impressive. So you give him structure, you give him an actual place with proper basketball, Kyle Kuzma is likely to thrive even more. But I feel as though the best role for Kyle Kuzma may not be this lead sort of role he had with the Washington Wizards, where he's been the best player in this team since Bradley Beal's departure. I feel as though Kyle Kuzma should enter the Andrew Wiggins and Aaron Gordon school of scaling down your role to become a better player. Doing less can be more. We saw with Andrew Wiggins being this high-tier usage player on the Minnesota Timberwolves, going to the Golden State Warriors, operating more as a high-tier role player with a great amount of success, which led to an NBA championship. Then we saw Aaron Gordon treated as this high-tier star player with Orlando, goes to the Denver Nuggets, where he's now moved into a high-tier role player spot. And, well, this also actually culminated into Aaron Gordon being an important piece of the 2023 NBA champion Denver Nuggets. I feel as though Kyle Kuzma, we saw him already do this role with the Lakers, where he was maybe not quite the same player, but perhaps more effective towards winning basketball games. And with Kyle Kuzma adding on all this additional talent, he can be a real star sort of player, like much better potentially than a high-tier role player for a specific team. But the Wizards understand his value here. They retained him. They gave him his contract. They brought him back because they wanted to capitalize on the asset. They wanted to get something out of Kuzma rather than losing him for free. I think they were rather fortunate that he did end up staying with the team, but here's the situation. Kyle Kuzma has 3 years left on his contract here. Like I said earlier, it is descending in value. $23.5 million this year, $21.5 million the next season, and in the final year of his contract in 2026, 2027, it's $19.5. In fact, under $19.5 million allocated towards Kyle Kuzma. Like, this isn't even 20% of the overall cap for your team, and likely that percentage is going to continue to drop as the salary cap goes up on a year-to-year basis. But with such value for the player, here's where the problem lies. The Wizards were trying to trade Kyle Kuzma towards the NBA trade deadline, but the sticking point was that they were asking for multiple first-round picks in order to make this one happen. Now, as it is for the Raptors, even though they had the bad luck in the most recent NBA draft lottery, one of the few pros associated with losing out on that top 6 pick to the San Antonio Spurs, one of the pros associated with that is that the Raptors now have all of the flexibility returned to them as far as their draft assets are concerned. No longer is a 25, 26, and 27 first-round pick locked up as far as trades are concerned due to the Stepien rule. The Raptors can move from these trades. So if the Wizards are asking for multiple first-round picks, the Raptors do have an ability to make this trade happen, and they do have the salary quite easily with Bruce Brown on the team in order to make this trade happen as well. Bruce Brown can be sent over to the Washington Wizards. Not a player the Wizards are likely to use, but potentially a player the Wizards could flip for another pick in the process. The Raptors would also be giving away 2 first-round picks in this situation. Have your pick at which ones. I went for the ones that are coming up, the 2025 and 2027 first-round pick. This is what would have to go to the Wizards, it seems, to make this deal happen based on the evaluation they set at the trade deadline. Now, don't go crazy here. That's a lot potentially to offer for Kyle Kuzma. This is merely based on what the Wizards wanted for Kuzma, but he's still a Wizard. They didn't get what they wanted. Time will tell what Kuzma's actual evaluation is, but I don't know if they're going to get quite this much out of a team. Potentially this trade is more likely to be something like Bruce Brown, a 2025 first-round pick, and a second-round pick down the line. Maybe that's the more fair value offered towards Kyle Kuzma. But before we even discuss the ability for the Raptors, could they make this trade? They could. I mean, we see it here. They could. They have the salary. They have the picks in order to make this deal happen. Should they make this trade? Well, that is a completely different discussion. I actually don't mind the fit for Kyle Kuzma here. I think the Raptors add in a dynamic scorer that they could probably use. They add in a little bit of floor spacing here, and I think, again, and that's a bit more of a scaled-down role, a more fine-tuned role, taking higher percentage shots. We could see Kyle Kuzma's three-point percentage climb up to a more respectable amount. But clearly, there is talent here. This is a good contract. Is it the right time for the Raptors to pull the trigger on a trade like this? I'm not so sure. The Raptors right now, look, they even if they are looking to expedite this retool process, how much does Kyle Kuzma move the needle? I think that turns this team into one that's very competitive towards getting an actual playoff position rather than one that's kind of hoping to be in the play-in tournament. But it doesn't move the needle to a significant degree as to sacrifice these first-round picks. The best thing the Raptors do as an organization is find talent in the draft. And once again, you're foregoing your ability to use that talent because you're giving away first-round picks. This was a little bit of my fear when losing that pick in the draft lottery because, I want to keep these picks. I want the Raptors to use these picks. But, clearly there is ability here. If it's 2 first-round picks, it's a complete no for me. 1 first-round pick makes it a little more interesting, but I feel as though these assets could be better served elsewhere by the Raptors. Maybe a player that has a little bit of a better fit overall with the team. I do like Kuzma's fit. I do like Kuzma as a player, but maybe a player is more suited to playing around Scotty Barnes, to playing around Emmanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett, potentially a player with a bit lower usage than what Kyle Kuzma would expect. Perhaps this isn't the correct destination for Kyle Kuzma as a person. There are some on-court things that we need to consider. I guess Toronto could be better than playing in Washington, but just some certain things to consider here. Maybe you would feel that out before making this trade happen. Ultimately, if it is Bruce Brown and 1 first-round pick, it's kind of hard to ignore that being a pretty good look for the Raptors, but I seriously struggle for the Wizards to come to an agreement there, and I feel as though other teams may feel a bit more inclined to lose a couple of picks here, because we look at what OG Anunoby went for. Kyle Kuzma is not OG Anunoby, but the Raptors got what essentially is a late first-round pick with that Detroit Pistons 31st overall pick. It's the first pick of the second round. We've explained before, but you have a lot more flexibility financially and length of contract with a second-round pick compared to a first-round pick. So you could argue a 31st overall pick is more valuable than, let's say, a 29th overall pick. The Raptors got that alongside 2 high-tier players in Emmanuel Quickly and RJ Barrett. That's the valuation for OG Anunoby. Could the Wizards look to get something close to that for this trade? Potentially. And I'm not sure the Raptors are the right team to make that trade happen, though I am a fan of Kyle Kuzma. Again, not sure the Raptors are the best team to make this trade happen, especially if it is 2 first-round picks. If it's 2 first-round picks, it's an immediate no for me. If it's Bruce Brown and 1 pick, hey, 1 first-round pick and a second-round pick alongside a player the Raptors want to get rid of anyway, this is a pretty good player you could bring to your team, and that's a tradable contract down the line as well, though I'm not sure the Wizards go for it. So for what the Wizards want, it's a no from me. If that valuation comes down, I'm sure another team will strike first, but hey, Masai Ujiri can always send out some feelers here. So what are your opinions on Kyle Kuzma? Do you think a trade could actually happen here? And if it could, should the Raptors pull the trigger? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, because that's all for me for today. Drop a like if you enjoyed, subscribe to the channel for more Raptors content, and I'll see you again next time for another video.